Welcome to Pub Sports Radio's NFL Futures videos. We are focusing today on the AFC West. And we start with the Kansas City Chiefs, 20-20. They went 14-2. They have the 13th hardest schedule in the league based on opposition forecasted wins. To make the playoffs, minus 1,100. To miss the playoffs, plus 650. Regular season win total at 12.5, juiced to the under at minus 140. To win the division, minus 280. To win the conference, plus 240. And to win the Super Bowl, just plus 450. Andy Reid's 9th year at the helm. Eric Bieniemy, the West Coast offense, 4th year as an offensive coordinator. And Steve Spagnuolo, year 3 in the 4-3 scheme. They pick up Orlando Brown, offensive tackle from the Ravens, going to be helping out Patrick Mahomes very much. Jerick McKinnon, they pick up from the Niners. Joe Thuney, a guard from the Patriots that was highly coveted. Creed Humphrey, they pick in the second round, 63rd overall out of Oklahoma, a center. Nick Bolton, a linebacker, number 58 overall from Missouri, and tight end Noah Gray, round 5, number 162 out of Duke. They lose Sammy Watkins to the Ravens. They lose Damian Williams to the Bears. Last year's Super Bowl losers are big favorites to hoist, the Lombardi Trophy this year. Last time we saw the Chiefs, they delivered a very poor performance on the big stage, a Super Bowl 55, and Mahomes was running for his life. 26 of 49, 270 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions in a blowout loss to the Buccaneers. Sacked 3 times and hurried a season-high 31 times. So what did the Chiefs do in the offseason? They upgraded their offensive line to protect him. The entire starting offensive line will be new in week 1. They released tackles Eric Fisher, Mitchell Schwartz, and they rebuilt. The first big move was traded for Ravens 25-year-old offensive tackle Orlando Brown. They signed 28-year-old Joe Thuney to a 5-year, $80 million contract. Signed Ram center Austin Blythe, who just underwent hernia surgery. So he may not be ready for week 1. They drafted Oklahoma Sooner center Creed Humphrey in the second round. And for us up here in the north, the return of Dr. Laurent Duvernay-Tardif from his 2020 opt-out to care for seniors in the care homes during the 2020 pandemic. And he is absolutely beloved in this country. Maybe the most beloved man in all of Canada is Dr. Laurent Duvernay-Tardif, and enormous respect for what he did in these care homes, these heavy-hit care homes in Quebec. Kyle Long, 3-time Pro Bowler with the Bears, came out of retirement to join the Chiefs. Lucas Nang, who opted out of his rookie season, is expected to beat Remmers for the right tackle job. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is supposed to benefit from these pickups. And we know what Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce do. They're absolute monsters. All pros in 2020. They combined for 192 catches, 2,692 yards, and 26 touchdowns. McCole Hardman will get a bigger role without Watkins around. Demarcus Robinson hopes to get a bigger role as well. Defensive tackle Chris Jones, defensive end Frank Clark were slowed by injuries last year and weren't that good. They need to show value to the Chiefs for these huge contracts that they signed. Former Seattle defensive tackle Jaron Reed will help the pass rush. Tershawn Wharton is an important piece at defensive tackle. Second-round pick linebacker Nick Bolton out of Missouri is hopefully going to be a big boost to this defense in the secondary. L'Jarius Sneed was excellent last year. Expected to keep getting better. Charvarius Ward was not as good as we had thought. He will be lining up beside Sneed. As the slot corner, Rashard Fenton looked good last year, but it's the Honey Badger, Tyrann Mathieu, who looks so good as a strong safety. They re-signed safety Daniel Sorensen. They hope that Juan Thornhill, their former second-round pick, is fully recovered from a 2019 torn ACL. Look, I get it. This is an improved squad, and they're embarrassed about what happened. But plus 450 to win the Super Bowl. Should they be this big of favorites, Babano? The Kansas City Chiefs, take it away.
Yeah, I'm not going to say that's a bad bet because it's Kansas City. It's Patrick Mahomes. They've shown the ability to win big games, win a championship. But for my betting value, I just don't want it at plus 450. I mean, they're going to be very good again. They're going to be challenged. We'll get to the other teams in the division. I think the division around them is better this year. So this is not going to be as easy a division, AFC West, for them to waltz through this year. You mentioned the O-line. It could be very good in time, and it wouldn't surprise me to see that. But you do have new faces with Orlando Brown, with Joe Thuney, Kyle Long and Creed Humphrey. They're going to actually be, I think, improvements in the middle of that O-line. But again, you're talking about just offensive line's a unit of chemistry. You know, you've got to be able to get the parts on that O-line to all gel, and that doesn't happen right away sometimes. So early in the year, they could see that O-line go in a state of transition. But I think very quickly they'll figure it out, and they'll be very good once the season continues to roll along. They actually, to be honest with you, this could be an O-line that once we get past maybe the first couple of weeks, they could end up being a better and stronger O-line than they even were last year, which is very good for Kansas City because we know that's where they had some issues. And look, they just were losing offensive linemen left and right late in the year and in the playoffs going into the Super Bowl. Their offensive line was shorthanded. It was depleted due to injury. And they realized, look, Patrick Mahomes, we know he's athletic and mobile, but man, we got to give him help. We got to give him good blocking and protection. And they certainly went to address that. You know what you're going to get at receiver, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, still one of the best tight ends in the NFL. Okay, they lose Sammy Watkins, big deal. He never really truly impressed me or was consistent. Mecole Hardman, Demarcus Robinson, Byron Pringle, more capable of stepping up. No problem with any of those three guys. They showed glimpses of what they could do. They do have to run the ball a little bit better. And to be honest with you, we'll see what Clyde Edwards-Helaire can do in that regard because I didn't think it was a great debut year for him with the Chiefs last year. But again, offensive line issues at times last year probably played a part in that. Bottom line is this team's still going to score points. They just will. With this scheme, with Andy Reid, with Eric Bieniemy, who's one of a couple of coordinators, offensive coordinators in this conference that I thought were going to receive head coaching jobs in the offseason and didn't. What a benefit it is to Kansas City to still have him as the OC calling plays. On the defensive side of the football, you know, it was a much improved defense last year. Remember 2 years ago, and Bob Sutton got fired a few years ago, and it had not been a good defense. Steve Spagnuolo came in, made it a better defense, went to the 4-3. You know, they got better in 19, but last year it got even better than that. Top 10 in terms of points allowed the last 2 years, which tells you the improvement they've made. Chris Jones, terrific on the defensive line. Frank Clark as well. That duo is very capable of getting pressure on opposing quarterbacks. What do they have around them is the question mark. You know, that is where there's a little bit more of a concern beyond those two guys. In terms of the second, the linebacking core is weak, though. That does bother me. They thought they were going to get an impact linebacker out of Anthony Hitchens, and it's been so-so. Some games he's made a couple of big plays, and then there's other games you just don't notice him really change the game on defense. And so he's going to have to take another step forward and be more consistent. The secondary, you mentioned it, L'Jarius Sneed, Javarius Ward, Rashad Fenton. I mean, pretty good group there back there. And Tyrann Mathieu, I thought he had a very good year. You do get concerned about Mathieu as the Honey Badgers we go along because the age keeps going up for him. A lot of snaps, a lot of reps on the field. Can you maintain that same high level of play? That remains to be seen. And the safety spot still, it's a little bit shaky outside of the Honey Badger, Tyrann Mathieu. You look at the schedule coming into this year, you know, they'll get to face the NFC East, which is good. The AFC North. As far as the win total goes, 12.5. I'm not betting an over 12.5 with this group because you got to ask for 13-4 or better. But I wouldn't want under either, you know, based on the fact they could still have a very good year. I don't love the futures. What I do like, though, and you'll notice on the screen, the 8-11 against the spread record, despite the 14-2 straight up record. I just think they're going to be overvalued again week to week. I think it's going to be very difficult to find this team to be a profitable, winning ATS team in terms of their record this year. You're not going to get a bargain on Kansas City, just like you didn't get a bargain with them last year, which is why they were 8-11 against the spread. And I think you're just going to be hard pressed to make money with a team this good like the Kansas City Chiefs, and the betting markets know it. The public knows how good they are. Not a team I'll be looking to back actively unless I have a really good reason to do so.
Yeah, makes sense. A tricky spot as this big of favorites. We're going to move on to the Los Angeles Chargers 2020 record 7-9. And on January 2nd, I will be right there at SoFi Stadium watching Broncos, Chargers, and I can't wait. 15th hardest schedule in the league based on opposition forecasted wins. To make the playoffs, plus 125. To miss the playoffs, minus 165. Regular season wins at 8.5. Now that's heavily juiced to the over now. It's just been getting more and more juice. That's now at minus 175. The under at plus 145. To win the division, 5-1. To win the conference, 16-1. To win the Super Bowl, they are plus 3,000. Brandon Staley, Joe Lombardi, and Ronaldo Hill all in their first year here. And it will be fun. It will be fun. Offensive coordinator Lombardi, West Coast offense in a 3-4 scheme, going to be installed by Ronaldo Hill. They bring in Jared Cook. Hunter Henry was a big loss. So they bring in Jared Cook. We'll see if he can handle that. Chase Daniel will be replacing Tyrod Taylor, will be serving as Herbert's backup. Josh Palmer, picked 77th overall out of Tennessee in round 3. Larry Roundtree, running back, round 6, 198 out of Missouri. Rashawn Slater, offensive tackle, 13th overall out of Northwestern. And Corey Lindsley, a huge signing for them. And he will be reunited with Brian Bulaga. As I said, they lose Hunter Henry and they lose Melvin Ingram to the Steelers. Herbert was a revelation last year. If he continues his ascent, this is going to be one dangerous football team. They finally shed themselves of the ridiculous mistakes that Anthony Lynn was making, and now Brandon Staley is welcome to the fold. Austin Eckler missed 6 games last season with the hamstring strain and the hyperextended knee. The word is that the hamstring strain was sort of a fluke situation. He's expected to be able to handle being the main running back for a full 17-game slate, and he should shine under new offensive coordinator Joe Lombardi. Keenan Allen caught 100 passes for 992 yards, 8 TDs, despite missing 2 games with a hamstring injury. Mike Williams' numbers dropped again. Jury might be out on him, and if he wants that giant contract, he better step up this year. Can 34-year-old Jared Cook replace Hunter Henry? They have 6'8" Donald Parham, who's an excellent blocker and may get some looks through the air as well. And they upgraded their offensive line enormously. Corey Lindsley, they bring in Matt Filer, Ode Abushi in free agency. Ryan Bulaga, the only returning starter. They also draft Rashawn Slater out of Northwestern, a big, big draft. This defense is expected to improve greatly because Brandon Staley is calling all the plays. And we saw what he did with the Rams, calling all the plays. Derwin James and Joey Bosa, if they are healthy, they're unbelievable. And they will change this defense drastically from what we saw last year. They re-signed Michael Davis. They're going to pair him with slot cornerback Chris Harris Jr. Rookie Asante Samuel Jr. joins the secondary from Florida State. Middle linebacker Kenneth Murray improved as the season went on. Drew Tranquill had a great rookie season in 2019. He was hurt in game 1 last year, so we didn't see the linebacker at all. And Uchenna Nwosu will replace the departed Melvin Ingram. This team is going to be better. It's going to be better. How much better, Babano?
A lot better. I like this team a lot coming into this year, this LA Chargers group. I think they could threaten Kansas City. That's how much I think there's possibilities for this Chargers group. And look, when you start looking at the team and why I think they're better this year, they're going to be coached better. All right, let's be honest. Anthony Lynn, that was not good last year. It was timeout issues. It was timeout clock management issues. It was game management issues, play calling issues. He challenged plays that he shouldn't have. He didn't challenge plays that he should have with the challenge flag. I mean, he ran the gamut of coaching fuck-ups and blunders last year, Anthony Lynn. And as far as I'm concerned, you're going to get Brandon Staley, who comes from the Sean McVay tree, as the defensive coordinator there with the LA Rams. The team's just going to be better prepared. You're not going to get penalized and undisciplined play like you got from the Chargers last year. I think that just the preparation level and the game plan and being ready to play and playing smart football, I think you're going to see a lot more of that for the LA Chargers this year compared to Anthony Lynn. Justin Herbert in year 2. Look, it was kind of a victim, a situation of circumstance as to how he suddenly got the start so quickly last year with the Tyrod Taylor injection issue. And then all of a sudden he's the starter. He doesn't look back from there. He has a very nice first year. It probably will be even better this year. The offensive line Why do I think that Justin Herbert's going to be very good this year? You look what he did, 21 touchdowns, only 10 interceptions. How about 67% completions? He ran for over 200 yards. He did it all last year. Dual threat quarterback, threw it, ran it, and he did it all behind an offensive line that had all kinds of issues last year. Multiple starters missing. You didn't have an offensive line that even when they were fully healthy was all that great. But what you've got now this year is a lot better talent around him. I think Brian Bulaga will be hopefully healthier this year and improve. It'll be Corey Linsley, one of the better centers in the NFL, a huge addition to the O-line. Mike Pouncey, good riddance, couldn't stay on the field, not good enough as far as I'm concerned on that Chargers O-line. That's a big addition to them as well. Matt Filer brought in a good O-lineman for years with the Steelers. Rashawn Slater picked in the 13th overall pick. I mean, all of a sudden you've got an offensive line that says, hey, we can go from bad to mediocre last year to maybe good this year. I think that could be a very solid O-line if you ask me. The receiving core, Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, you like being led by two pretty good receivers like that. The depth is a concern at that position. So you're going to have to hope that, they drafted someone in the third round, Josh Palmer, to insulate that wide receiving core. So there's still a few concerns about what happens if Allen or Williams get hurt. But if they don't and they stay on the field, that's a good receiving core. They have a great running back group. Austin Eckler, Justin Jackson, Joshua Kelly. Lots of depth there at the running back spot. And the defensive side of the football, I think when you look at it, Brandon Staley's going to do, I think, a great job coordinating that defense and getting it ready, just like he did with the LA Rams. You look at the secondary, Casey Hayward gone, but he struggled last year. I don't think that's a bad move that they parted ways with him. They drafted Asante Samuel Jr., I think is going to be a good player in that secondary to go alongside the veteran Chris Harris, who's still, I think, an upper tier corner in the league at the other spot. Depth is also an issue there, but that starting group, if it's Harris and Asante Samuel Jr., I can live with that. That's a solid group. And, of course, they might have one of their best players in the secondary finally, Derwin James watch it's been for the last couple of years, and being able to see him back on the field because we know this guy could be an impact safety and really be one of the better players in terms of pass defense in the entire league when healthy. Well, we're finally going to get, hopefully, a chance to see that for a full 17 games this year. Joey Bosa leading what's still a very, very capable pass rush. I know Melvin Ingram's gone, but one thing about Melvin Ingram is he took too many penalties. I didn't like that, but he is a good player. They'll miss him. But when you look at it, they're going to ask for more out of Uchenna Nwosu for this team. Kyler Fackrell as well brought in to shore up the D-line a little bit as well. I like what I see overall from this Chargers defense, and it doesn't hurt whatsoever that you're going to have Brandon Staley as the head coach running this defense. A lot to like as far as I'm concerned. You're going to play the NFC East. You have a chance to sweep that division if you ask me. For the LA Chargers, you can win every game if you ask me in that division. I really like this team. You got to lay juice on the 8.5, but I would do that. I like over 8.5 wins. I think they're going to be an ATS moneymaker for their backers this year. They were 9-7 against the spread last year, and they weren't even a great team last year. They're a better team. I think they could improve on 9-7 ATS and be really a good profit producer this year. And as far as the futures, I took a shot at the plus 500 to win the division. The AFC West. And I'm also on them at 16 and 30-1 for Super Bowl and the AFC. I think in an AFC where, you like Buffalo, you like Kansas City, you like Cleveland, but there's still teams that can upset the apple cart behind them that they play their A game in any given playoff game. They can win a game like that. Chargers have that look of a team that can do that. I think it'll be a good year for the Chargers, for the Lightning Bolts with Brandon Staley at the helm.
Agreed. They are going to be very fun to watch, and the 8.5 is just getting more and more juice towards the over. Let's talk about another team that is expected to be much improved. The Denver Broncos, 20-20 record, 5-11, and they are blessed with the second easiest schedule in the league based on opposition forecasted wins. To make the playoffs, plus 150. To miss the playoffs, minus 200. They also have an over-under of 8.5 wins, minus 130 to the over, plus 100 to the under. 550 to win the division, 900 to win the conference, and 2,000 to win the Super Bowl. And that is fascinating, just right there, that the Chargers would be so much bigger long shots to win the conference and the Super Bowl than the Broncos, and yet way more juiced on the 8.5, and expected to make the playoffs. I was shocked when I was looking at these odds for conference and Super Bowl for these Broncos. Vic Fangio in year 3 at the helm, offensive coordinator. Pat Shurmur, year 2, West Coast offense, defensive coordinator. Ed Donatel, year 3, 3-4 scheme. Key acquisitions, Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy comes in from Carolina. So he did not look good over his final 10 starts. He has won the job. That was announced within the last 24 hours. Javonte Williams, running back, round 235th out of North Carolina. Kyle Fuller comes in from the Bears. It is a big pickup and someone that Fangio knows very well. Patrick Surtain, 9th overall out of Alabama. And Ronald Darby comes in from Washington. They lose Philip Lindsay to the Texans. They lose A.J. Bouye to the Panthers. And Jarrell Casey is a free agent. So Drew Lock will still sit on the bench, but it wouldn't shock me if we see Drew Lock at times this year. Bridgewater's going to have much better weapons at his disposal. We only saw Cortland Sutton for one game last year. He's such an important piece to this offensive puzzle. Big body. You got Jerry Jeudy. Jeudy, only Bronco to go for over 750 yards. He catches for 856 yards, and he should get a boost in those numbers. Noah Fant, Tim Patrick. And Tim Patrick, of those 4, only one who wasn't a top 40 pick, and the elder statesman at 27 years old. This is a squad that started 10 different quarterbacks since 2016. To come into this season with Bridgewater and then Locke behind him must feel good for them. Melvin Gordon going to get the bulk of carries. Philip Lindsay departing to Texans. Javonte Williams will back him up. Garrett Bowles, All-Pro last year. Giant season last year, rewarded with a 4-year, $68 million contract. Now, Jawan James suffered a torn Achilles, and that hurts them. And we don't know how good he is. I mean, he 63 snaps in the last 2 years, knee injury, COVID-19 opt-out, and now a torn Achilles. That hurts him. Dalton Rissner, Graham Glasgow, and Lloyd Cushenberry need to stay healthy and have strong seasons. Von Miller returns. And this could be his last year as a Bronco. He's 32 now, and he's got a lot to prove all of a sudden. But this defense with Von Miller returning and the idea that, we'll finally get to see what him and Chubb can do together. I know we did in 2018 when they combined for 26.5 sacks, but that was a long time ago. Fuller and Darby will free up Callahan to play slot. George Payton has got to be sitting back and smiling, their GM. Their defense looks so strong. He brings in Justin Simmons and Shelby Harris to long-term deals. A lot is expected from inside linebackers, Josie Jewell and Alexander Johnson. But this is a dangerous football team. But, Bono, how good are the Broncos going to be this year?
This football team's got a good O-line, a better O-line. They've got skill position weapons with Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton. The running back group, I don't love it, but it's good enough. Defense is loaded, particularly in the secondary when you look at what they're going to be having there. Kareem Jackson, when they talk about him on that side of the ball. Justin Simmons at the safety spot. Bringing in Kyle Fuller from the Chicago Bears, putting him in that secondary. I mean, they're not going to be easy to throw on. If you're an opposing team trying to make plays in the passing game against this Denver secondary, it's not going to be easy. And of course, Patrick Surtain, Bryce Callahan, Jet Fuller, it's going to be a terrific secondary. And then, of course, Simmons and Jackson, just an outstanding secondary, maybe one of the best in the NFL, if you ask me. The defensive line, of course, gets Von Miller back healthy again. And remember, Bradley Chubb, his other partner in crime for the pass rush, also missed some time last year. So you've got all of that. You've got all of these things that look so great. And also a team that had a ton of injuries last year, a ton on both sides of the football. So you would like to think that the roll of the dice, which is better health and less injuries, goes their way this year as well. So there's everything to like about this Denver team, with one gigantic question mark. Yes, the quarterback position, where Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater have been battling it out. We know Teddy Bridgewater is now the starter, and I think that's the good, smart, safe option given the team that Denver has around him. You've got a good O-line. You've got weapons. You've got a defense you can rely on. The pass rush should come back with Von Miller and Chubb back. You should be decent against the run. Your interior is solid of that D-line. You should be able to cover down the field in the secondary so that if you do blitz every now and then, and bring an extra guy at the line of scrimmage. You've got guys that can lock up receivers one-on-one down the field. That's what you've got for Denver. All we're asking Teddy Bridgewater to do, and all we're asking Drew Lock to do if he gets in at some point, don't screw it up. Be good. Be solid. Be steady. Be serviceable. Make good reads. Make good plays when they're there. Don't force shit. Don't force anything. Don't try to make something happen when there's nothing there. That's what they have to do. And if they do that, they just be solid. They protect the football. They just gradually move the chains, put some points on the board. Don't make any careless, needless turnovers. This is going to be a very good football team this year. And this is going to be a team that I think when you look at the Chargers, the team we just talked about, and the Broncos as well, these are teams that are closing the gap, in my opinion, this year on the Kansas City Chiefs. This is another team I bet over their win total. As far as ATS goes, look, I'm now going to say that they will for sure, I think, be a profitable point spread team. You mentioned Teddy covers, Teddy Bridgewater. A shout out to Ted Savransky. You're not the only Teddy covers out there. Teddy Bridgewater covers point spreads. That's what he does. He has put money in my pocket in recent years, and a lot of people's, especially as an underdog. His numbers as an underdog overall are outstanding, something like 70%. Actually, I think that's his overall record in terms of just overall ATS. But as an underdog, and a road underdog in particular, he's almost unbeatable against the spread. I think he's lost 2 games against the number in his career as a starter, Teddy Bridgewater, as a road underdog. That's incredible. And look, Denver's going to be a dog in several games this year, most games. He is going to cover some numbers. This will be a definite, in my opinion, with him as the starter. This will be a definite ATS profitable winning team this year. They will improve significantly on the 5-11 record of last year. I think they're a 9-8 team minimum in 2021. And just like I did with the Chargers, Jimmy, a little shot on the division at plus 550, a little shot at the AFC at 9-1, and a little shot on the 20-1 to win the Super Bowl. Why not? Because I think if things break right for Denver and the quarterback play doesn't mess things up and lose them or cost them games, this is a team that's going to be in a lot of games, and this is a team that's got the potential to win a lot of those games.
I cannot wait for January 2nd when I get to see the Broncos Chargers play in person, drunk. Next up, the Las Vegas Raiders. 2020 record 8-8. They have the hardest schedule in the league based on opposition forecasted wins, and they've been completely disregarded in the markets. To make the playoffs plus 300, to miss the playoffs minus 400. Regular season win total at 7.5, heavily juiced to the under, minus 160. To win the division, 16-1. Conference, 30-1. Super Bowl, 60-1. John Gruden in year 4. This is when we thought everything would be coming together for them, for Gruden. Well, I didn't. I don't trust Gruden. But you'd think when a coach signs a giant 10-year deal that year 4, they would be rolling. Greg Olson, offensive coordinator, year 6. Defensive coordinator Gus Bradley comes in. Key acquisitions, they get John Brown from the Bills, bring in Kenyon Drake, a running back from the Cardinals, Yannick Ngakoue, defensive end from the Ravens, Trayvon Moehrig, the safety, number 43rd overall out of TCU, Casey Hayward, cornerback from the Chargers. They lose Nelson Aguilar to the Patriots, Tyrell Williams, wide receiver, to the Lions, and Rodney Hudson, the center, a second-team All-Pro in 2019. I know he's 32, but they lose him to the Cardinals, and there's a lot of question marks with this football team. This era has been discouraging, the Gruden era. 0 playoff appearances and an atrocious defense. Derek Carr, though, I mean, he looked like he was on the chopping block as soon as Gruden got the job, and he's been good. Started all 16 games, finished the year with a 3-1 TD interception or better for the first time since 2016. 4,103 passing yards, passer rating over 100 for the second straight season. Henry Ruggs has not proven that he should have been the first wide receiver taken off the board. He ended up with more drops than touchdowns. He dropped a couple fumbles. Now, he was 6th in yards per reception for receivers that got at least 30 targets, and 3rd in average depth of target, so he can stretch defenses. Darren Waller is unbelievable. What a tight end they have. And they're going to be using Kenyon Drake with Josh Jacobs, and we know how dominant Josh Jacobs can be, but he takes a beating, and it's going to be nice to have Kenyon Drake behind him. Here's the problem. Center Rodney Hudson, guard Gabe Jackson, and Trent Brown all traded away in an 8-day period. That's 286 career starts, 4 Pro Bowl appearances. So, I mean, Richie Incognito is supposed to return from an Achilles injury. I mean, they have Colton Miller, but this is a big problem. They give a 3-year, $12.5 million deal to Andre James, former UCLA center. Now, they draft Alex Leatherwood, 17th overall out of Alabama. He's an Outland Trophy Award winner. But a lot of critique on that draft that they could have got him later. So there's 13 new players for Gus Bradley. This is a defense that allowed the 3rd most points, had the 3rd fewest turnovers. I mean, they only had 21 sacks last year. Now, Yannick Ngakoue will help. Max Crosby will move into more of a pass rush specialist. Cleveland 4th overall draft pick. He's not being good enough. Interior lineman Quentin Jefferson, Solomon Thomas, Darius Phillon have to step up. Corey Littleton needs to step up in a big way. He's been disappointing. Nick Kwiatkowski looked good last year. Nicholas Morrow looked good. Trevin Moehrig may be a great draft. The free safety out of TCU may be a huge draft pick, and he better be. They bring up Trevin Moehrig, so that will free up Jonathan Abram, and Damon Arnett needs to prove that he was a worthwhile 2020 first-round pick. So many question marks on defense. Is this team going to be are these going to be overs when the Raiders play, because they're going to have to score a ton of points to cover and win games, Babano?
I actually think it could be the opposite. I think they actually could go under the total in some of their games this year. And that's the first thought that comes to mind, because last year with this Las Vegas team, and they were a team that I just was riding over the total. I mean, their offense was at least solid, good most weeks with Derek Carr, a very good offensive line, good skill position talent. You mentioned Waller, you mentioned the receivers, Josh Jacobs running the football. They had all of that in place, but the defense was just an absolute sieve. It was brutal. They couldn't get stops. They couldn't get the pass rush. They couldn't stop the run, torch through the air. It was everything that a defense could do wrong. They did wrong. It was awful. And I'll give Gruden credit. Enough with hiring your buddies. Enough with hiring your friends. At some point you got to make change when things aren't working. And he had the good sense to part ways with Paul Guenther midway through last year. It was just not working with him as the defensive coordinator. And I do like what he brought in Gus Bradley. It's a guy that's capable. He's been a DC before. He's been a good one before. He might be another one of those long lines of coaches that didn't work for him as a head coach, but maybe defensive coordinator. It's going to help here for him with the Las Vegas Raiders this year. So I don't mind that higher one bit. And as far as we'll start with the defense, I think there is approval for some improvement. Cleveland Farrell, I think, performed better as the season went on last year. You're going to have to hope for more with him, and with Crosby, and now with bringing in Yannick Ngakoue from the Baltimore Ravens, you now all of a sudden could get a decent pass rush this year, and it should be helped a little bit. I would think it will. Quentin Jefferson brought in to bolster that D-line even further. So there's some hope there. The linebacking core is going to have to improve because, look, Littleton and Kwiatkowski last year really struggled. You're going to need more from that group. In terms of the secondary, they bring in Casey Hayward, who most of his career has been a great cornerback, but not last year. It was his worst year. That's why the Chargers didn't keep him, right? We just talked about the Chargers. Why didn't they keep Casey Hayward? Because he had his worst year, and they weren't going to pay him. Raiders did, and you're going to have to hope it's Hayward of 2019 and prior, not Casey Hayward last year, who was getting beaten down the field. So, and he's 32 now, so a little bit of a risk there. But no, there's parts of this defense, Jimmy, that I think are going to be better. And everyone remembers the offense being the strength of the team last year, which it was. But there's issues with this offense. You can't lose 3 starters on the offensive line: Trent Brown, Gabe Jackson, Rodney Hudson, who I mentioned in our Arizona preview. I love the addition, getting him. You can't lose that kind of talent on the O-line. Proven Pro Bowl talent, and expect to be as good. And the one thing about Derek Carr, he needs protection. He needs a good O-line. He's not going to function well with an O-line that's got question marks. And there are now suddenly a boatload of question marks with this offensive line. You're going to have to pin your hopes now on when you look at this offensive line. Colton Miller, who's an average player, Alex Leatherwood, who is a big question mark now, and a rookie, and there were questions about, should they have taken him? We'll have to wait and see on that. The rest of the offensive line, you're going to rely on a 38-year-old head case and Richie Incognito on that O-line who barely played last year because of an ankle injury. And then your other options are guys that struggled last year, like Denzel Good and Nick Martin and Andre James, who's playing center for the first time. That O-line's in shambles, in my opinion, Jimmy. Not only have they regressed, in my opinion, this O-line, I think it's in shambles. And to me, if that O-line is a problem, and I think it will be, Derek Carr's not going to play well, and this offense is not going to execute, and they're not going to put the yards or the points the way they did last year, put up those points. They're just not going to do it in my mind. I like Darren Waller as a tight end. When you look at it, Henry Ruggs kind of struggled last year, but you got to think he's going to be better. I actually like that they have John Brown at receiver now and brought him in instead and parted ways with Aguilar because I think Aguilar's a little overrated. I like Jacobs in the running game back spot. I like that. I like a lot of their skill position talent, but what good is it if you have a quarterback that needs a good O-line to perform well and isn't going to have it in my mind? That O-line is bad. It's just gone from one of the better offensive lines, or at least an above average O-line last year with what they had with Brown and Jackson and Hudson, who are all gone from this Raiders O-line. It goes from a good O-line, an above average O-line, to all of a sudden a bottom 10, maybe even a bottom 5 offensive line this year. That's how much it's gone down. So I actually think if they price Raider game totals like last year, you get those high 40s, 50s totals, thinking, hey, this offense last year was great, the defense not. I think the defense steps up a little this year, but the offense takes a huge few steps backwards. So for me, they're a bet against team, and it's not that they're horrible, because there are worse teams in the NFL than the Las Vegas Raiders. Keep in mind, they almost made the playoffs last year. If Ryan Fitzpatrick doesn't drive that ball in the seconds remaining last year and kick that game-winning field goal, they're still in the mix to make the playoffs. Not a horrible team, but they're below average. And when you consider Kansas City isn't going anywhere in the division, and Denver's going to be better, and the LA Chargers are going to be better, where does that leave Las Vegas? It leaves them as not a horrible team, but unfortunately, they're victims of the division they play in, a below-average team that probably finishes in the basement. And I think from a totals perspective, game totals-wise, maybe look for some value under if they're going to price Las Vegas from a total standpoint in the 40s, high 40s, low 50s range like they did last year.
Great breakdown there. AFC West. What a fun division they're going to be. I can't wait to see the Chargers and Broncos play this year. There you have it. Thank you so much for watching and supporting us here at Pub Sports Radio. Please hit the like and subscribe button, and we will be live every Tuesday night all year long, 8 p.m. live show breaking down opening lines, and then Sunday NFL Pub Hub with revolving guests 2 hours before kickoff every Sunday all year long. Thank you on behalf of Babano, myself, and everybody at Pub Sports Radio. Let's have ourselves a giant football season.